Something in the U.S., in the home modalities. What we mean by there is doing dialysis at home, whether it's peritoneal or true dialysis, just like you would have it in-center, but you do it at home. What I'm about to tell you is going to blow you away. Is that me? Oh, okay. About 82 to 86% of people in Europe do home dialysis. Paul, any idea how many in the U.S. do home dialysis? Take a guess. Just under that. Isn't that sad? But just 5 years ago, it was less than 2%. And home modalities, I'm going to talk a little bit more in detail about this, but the quality of life in doing it at home is so far exceeds going in center is staggering. But I'm going to tell you a story about how the two LDOs, as they call themselves, and they actually came up with that, large dialysis organization. That's their term for themselves. They came up with that. This last one, this has gotten lost in the noise. And as I go through here, I'm going to spend a little time talking about CKD. And some stories I can tell won't bore you today, but you will see that if you start managing these people early on, we've heard about getting to a patient early in their disease. I've been hearing it for years. Nothing has ever been truer than in this process than with CKD. All right. Jennifer, we stuck again? All right. Remember I had told you a few minutes ago I had a graph here about the cost of a claim? Notice the two LDOs. Now this is a per claim. This is actually a claim filed by an LDO. We've talked about who those two are. And you'll notice one charges $4,600 on average. That, by the way, does include lab and drugs. The other one charges $3,900. Look at that bottom number. Can you see the bottom number? $330.99. What do you think that is? That's what Medicare pays. Okay? This number right here, the 505.80, that's what the two LDOs actually receive in payment per claim from everyone. Medicare and the BUCA, Medicaid, and so forth. Now think about that for a minute. That's what they're receiving. This is what they're billing. Who's getting billed this? All of the commercial payers, all of the self-funded employers. And if you're not fighting this hard, you're going to get killed, and it's going to get worse year after year. This is what our average reimbursement is, $641 per claim. We average about an 80 to 85% discount off a bill, day in, day out, year after year. They don't like us because there's nothing that they can do. You just put some language in your plan and you're done. Okay, any questions about this? Yeah, Bruce. Great question. We're going to go there. Bruce just put a watermelon on top of a tee for me, and I've got my bat, and I'm going to swing it. Bruce asked the question, what about balance billing? That is a great question. One of the things, if you recall, that somebody can get covered under Medicare Part B if you have ESRD and are going to get dialysis. The law states that if you are covered by Medicare, you cannot receive, or excuse me, if the provider has received the Medicare allowable amount of the $330.99, the provider can't balance bill. That doesn't mean, now, the employer is still going to pay the lower amount on behalf of the plan and the dialysis claim, and they are primary, Richard, correct? But DaVita can't go back and balance bill the patient because they're covered under Medicare Part B. The maximum allowed Medicare amount has been paid. Balance billing is done. They can't do anything. That's why they hate us. And it's very easy to do. When the initial diagnosis occurs, you have a 90-day period. The patient has a 90-day period to file for Medicare. They get A and B at that point in time. They go through the 90 days, and at that point, that's when the good part kicks in to where the provider can't balance bill. And thank you, Bruce. You set that right up for me. Does anyone have any questions about this? Because balance billing is a big deal. Let's talk about it for a second. You may have heard there are some TPAs that are now doing Medicare plus pricing for all diagnoses across the board. They're putting that kind of plan language in their plan. Well, with dialysis, they have Medicare Part B, that's fine. The problem is there is no answer today for the balance billing that will possibly occur on all of those other diagnoses. For instance, you have an appendectomy, and let's say the Medicare allowable or the bill is $20,000, and the Medicare allowable is $1,000. Well, there's $19,000, and the provider has every right to balance bill for that amount. And at this point, there's nothing in place to prevent that from going on. Question? If they accept the assignment, yes. If there is an assignment, if they accept the assignment of benefits, they can't balance bill. But most providers have figured out they're going to check, if you think about it, how many providers check what the benefits are prior to the procedure going on, and they're going to see, oh, I'm going to get Medicare plus 20%. Wait a minute, it's a lot lower than what I would normally get in my bill. You know, if it was 20 or 30% less than billed, I might go ahead and take it. If it was 50% less than billed, I might take it. But 80% less than billed, they may not want to take it. So if they don't accept the assignment, they can do the balance billing. That answer your question? Okay. I'm sorry? Oh, yes. That's Dialysis 201. Okay, let's move on here. All right. I have mentioned to you about CKD. Progression from stage 3 to ESRD. ESRD, again, is end-stage renal. That's when you go on dialysis. That's stage 5. There are 5 stages, obviously, in this process. Stage 1 and 2, generally speaking, are not that big of a deal. They can be taken care of with diet and so forth. But once you hit stage 3 as a patient, excuse me, you are now officially sick. You need to be being managed. An example of how important this is, well, for goodness sakes. Less than 1 month, 25% of people who hit stage 3 CKD go into ESRD within 1 month. 90% of those folks go into ESRD within 30 months. If you think about a number that we threw out about how much it costs per month, the cost of one ESRD patient can exceed $1.5 million in bill. And remember, we've already talked about the 1 in 10 Americans have CKD. This is a problem, and no one knows about it. I'm going to show you a slide here in just a minute to let you know how much no one knows about it. Bruce, we were talking about it at lunch. Why is CKD not out there? Why don't we know? Well, one of the reasons for it is the actual cost of treating CKD is very small. Now, this slide may not make sense because of what I just said. But what happens when somebody has comorbidities going on and they have CKD, the cost of their claims go up dramatically. You'll notice the darker blue. That's with the comorbidity by itself. The additional cost you can see is almost 50 to 75% higher when somebody has CKD. And the reason for this is not the treatment of the CKD, it's because they go into the hospital more. And what is happening, your case management folks, they're treating the comorbidities. They're not treating the CKD as well as the comorbidities that are going on. So they're attributing somebody's heart disease, oh, their heart disease is worse, need to go into the hospital. I didn't know, and no reflection upon the internal meds, but quite often, many people are being treated by internal med folks. 43% of the people that go into ESRD stage 5 don't even know they have CKD. Don't even know it. The reason is there's certain tests that need to be run, certain ways that need to be done. A nephrologist is not brought in at stage 3 when they need to be brought in. Kind of an example of how bad this is, I'm not going to say it's comparable as such, but to kind of give you an idea, it would be like you've got to have a bypass on your heart, and you're not going to see a cardiologist until it's time to go in the hospital. Not a good idea. It's the same type of problem. So, moving on. All right, I've thrown out all this stuff. And bottom line is, one of the problems we have in all of this and why nothing is happening is we're all in a reactive state. Because if you recall early in the conversation, I mentioned that we call it the jack in the box. Remember the old jack? And it pops up. Well, all of a sudden, this is kind of thing of nobody pays any attention to it. The dialysis claims only happen once every 2 or 3 years. We're not paying any attention to it, both in the CKD world. The claim pops up like the jack in the box, and all of a sudden we have a claim. That's the reactive position. I'm not going to try to go through all of these things with you. This will be online, right? Okay. But here's Bruce's question, including a misconception of balance billing. The false sense of security that a PPO discount is going to work. I'm going to show you a slide here in just a minute about how that may not be true. Of course, the opposite is being proactive, doing CKD management, following people end to end, all the way through the process. The only downside, well, you need to work with somebody that knows what they're doing. And you got to change the SPD. All of the other stuff falls into place. Again, I'm not going to go through the big, long list. But if you're proactive, your costs are going to go down dramatically. And at some point in time, if obviously we have a commercial just like David did, and to show you how we can help. So, any questions on the reactive versus the proactive? All right, did I get away here? All right, Jennifer, you're on again. Am I pointing at the right place? Nope. You know what? There's maybe the maybe it's the battery. Okay. Yeah. All right. Sorry about that, folks. Once again, I've been throwing all this stuff. But one of the things everybody in this room knows, whether you do fully insured, whether you do self-funded, whether you're doing both, the one thing that you need to know is what's going on, and that's data. For a long time, we all kind of say, oh, well, the data's good. No one, the employer isn't going to look at it. Okay? Well, we also know that those days are changing. You've got to pay attention to it. We believe that the data management is what we call the cornerstone of our entire approach. Here's an example. We had a large employer, a very large employer. I'm going to think 10,000, maybe 15,000 lives. I don't remember the exact number. And they had patients in 28 different centers. DaVita, Fresenius, some Independence. And one of the things that we learned during the course of the year, not disintegration, but the lessening of the PPO contracts that were in place were staggering. The average discount for DaVita owned started at 34% and ended at 24% by the end of the year. And Fresenius it started at 49 and ended at 33. Real quickly, go back in your mind to the slide about the purple and the orange graph. The Fresenius was the higher amount. The old saying, the discount off for what? Okay. Now, the independents obviously are where you would want to send a patient. The problem, only 15% of the independents now take on the patients. But you can see how much the discounts at the PPOs fell in just 1 year. Here's another example. Oh, we're stuck again. Okay, got it. Just did a review of a TPA, 35, 40,000 lives, got 12 months of their data. We found 66 folks, group 1, 2, and 3, were in CKD or higher. Excuse me, CKD stage 3 or higher. Found. People that need to be managed and weren't being managed. The big thing, that 1,074 silent CKD, what we mean by that is somebody who has 2 or 3 or more comorbidities going on, like the diabetes, the hypertension, that CKD is not being diagnosed or in presence of what's going on. Folks, data shows 43% of people with diabetes have CKD. Okay, so if say that half of the folks here have diabetes, that means 20% of that 1,000 people need to be managed. Nobody knows about them. They're jack in the box. Okay, so you really need, and this is every TPA we have done this for gets staggered by these numbers, because these are folks that are doing a good job, believe they're doing a good job, have the best of class stuff going on, but because they don't have the right data, they're not getting this kind of information. This is important, and I assure you, the BUCA is not getting this kind of information. Did I say that? Okay, so let me do the commercial for just a moment. What do? You find a company like us that can help you manage the whole program. You can see by this, you know, we do the CKD management, we do the renal data management. We're the only folks that are doing these two things in this space. The home modalities, we talked about that for just a bit. And one of our philosophies is, and this is really important, we believe people need to do dialysis at home for a lot of reasons. One of the issues is cost. Our friends DaVita and Fresenius have figured out, oh, we'll charge the same per treatment if they do it at home as it is if they come in center. Well, the downside to that, from a payer point of view, is in center is 3 to 4 times a week, treatments a week. Home is 6 to 7. Do the math, doesn't work for a payer. Okay? However, If the program is done right, the peritoneal is actually cheaper. Peritoneal, by the way, is they do it through the stomach. It's not as bad as it sounds, folks. And the other thing is when you put the language in, true story, had a prospective claimant, home dialysis, like in-center, true dialysis, 926,000 projected build. Right now they're running at a run rate of about 212 with our reimbursements. Okay, so you get it back in control, and we talk about the quality of life. If nothing else, most people say, and it's anecdotal because there's really no way to test it, most everybody who does home dialysis says they are living a normal life as much as they can. They feel better. For those of you who don't know, doing in-center dialysis, you feel better, feel good 1, possibly 2 days a week. 3 days you're spending 4 or 5 hours in the chair. There's a nocturnal approach at home, 7 nights a week. You do it while you're asleep. And people are saying they feel like they don't have any problems whatsoever. Now, all of that aside, the one thing about home dialysis that's the most important, it is proven, studies have shown, you live longer under home dialysis than you do doing dialysis in center. Now think about that for a moment. A comment I made a few minutes ago. This is a death warrant, folks. If you can live longer to get a transplant, and keep in mind, a kidney transplant with a non-family donor, 1,099 days average wait. That was in 2011. I don't know what it is today. So that's almost 3 years. Okay? So if you get a chance to live longer, 6 months, year, 2 years. Now, it doesn't mean that everybody from dialysis dies in 3 years. It doesn't mean that. But just think about the quality of life improvement when you're doing it at home. The couple of other things, yes, you can get specialty network discounts. We can take care of that. There are reasons to do that every once in a while. The single patient agreements, there are some employers who absolutely want to sign off from the provider. Kind of touching, sir, on the comment you made about the balance billing kind of thing. Once again, not as effective. The single patient agreement average around a 50% discount. A specialty network can anywhere from 25 to 30%. Again, there are reasons to do that every once in a while. That's 201, if you will. The payment-based UNR, that's the most effective. That's the one where you change the plan language. You include the balance billing that we talked about. And our average discount is 85% off a build. And the only people who even appeal us anymore is DaVita. And it's an amusing thing because we've been doing this for so long. We've been in this space for 12 years, which is a long time in this space. And the only people that are doing an appeal is DaVita. And it's the same identical letter every single time, no matter what office or what provider base is coming from. We do the appeal, we support the appeals, we send a letter, response letter back to the TPA to share to DaVita, and it goes away. Let's see, and we get about 8 of those, 10 of those a month. And yes, they push a button, send us a letter, we push a button, have a letter to respond, and it goes away. So the appeal process is pretty much done with. Any questions on any of this? By the way, the term renal logic is the product name of our CKD management. Okay, the ultimate commercial. And this is the ultimate commercial. See that picture? That literally is 5 minutes from our home office. Our home office is based out in Sandpoint, Idaho, which is in the panhandle of Idaho, about 60 miles from the Canadian line. And first time I saw that, literally you're coming through kind of a wooded area, and you come out and there's this bridge, and you see this. I almost had a wreck. It's it is just that beautiful. It's phenomenal. But just real quick, remember I said we've been in business for a long time. In the last 3 years, we've saved our clients over $86 million in build. We have a dedicated staff of experts, and the cliche, David was talking about the cliche thing. We have a CMO, we have a CLO. These people get involved with what we're doing. When there's a doctor to doctor, our CMO gets involved, okay? We're not just 5 people, and one of our competitors is 5 people sitting in an office on the telephone, okay? Folks, everybody in this room could become a dialysis repricer today. Don't know how much money you'd make, but if you could get somebody to let you reprice a claim, you could do it. It's not hard. The issues are all the complexities surrounding the repricing of that claim. That's the support that we bring. Any questions? Thank you.